What's up, everybody? This is Herschel Froome from High School Top 200, and this is the Monday morning meeting. This is going to be a bit different because I have broken my laptop. Well, I haven't broken it, but it's not, the USB ports aren't working, so I can't upload it or download it or anything like that. If you hear steps outside, that's just my wife walking around outside of my office. So, yeah, that's her there. But this is going to be a different one. Obviously, I think I'm going to talk about my. Because a lot of people had questions for me about my Moana Pacific involvement or what I would do, and honestly, it is just around recruiting. It is around recruiting, and I would love to recruit for them and be a part of that team to help keep Samoans and Tongans and Fijians and keep them in a position where they can be part of Super Rugby, also have the same opportunities without having to take that big massive pay cut that they get if they are not signed to New Zealand Rugby but are playing on a super franchise, because your pay gets cut down massively. If you don't know, that's what it is. I'll check on what the actual percentage is, but it's like they cut 25%, something like that. If you're not 25% of what your salary is, they'll take that off if you are not signed under New Zealand Rugby Union and you are playing for another nation, that kind of stuff. So, like, if you play for Samoa or Tonga, but you play for a super franchise, you don't actually get all your pay packet. They cut 25% of it. So that's something to think about. But then also, that's where, Moana Pacific is important in terms of, being able to be a part of it, get your pay cut, stuff like that down. But, people ask me what I'd do, and I would just be a part of recruiting, player development, that kind of stuff from that end. Not going into the super, not at all that kind of stuff. Just recruiting, making sure that boys know that there's other options besides the Chiefs and the Blues, Crusaders and whatever. But that Moana Pacific is going to be stacked up in that way, because I feel like if there's going to be a Chiefs under 18s, Blues under 18s and all that kind of stuff, why not a Moana Pacific under 18 that's selected by somebody else outside of that, but that can select the guys that are not wanted? That's the other thing, was that at least you can add more talent than under 18s to that system, and you have an extra team to actually play. Because there is a lot of talent that's left out there. And apart from, getting selected to those under 18 regional teams, other than that, they have nothing else. And then they end up getting left off every other every other rep team after that. That's just how it goes. I mean, if you want to go back and have a look at the article that I wrote before, is that a huge percentage of those New Zealand secondary school players carry on all the way through. So why wouldn't it be that important to make New Zealand secondary schools? Now, if you can prove it, let's say that the Chiefs don't select the boy here who happens to be Tongan, and then the Moana Pacific team picks him up, then they end up having, rep games against each other, Moana Pacific ends up playing the Blues, and then that kid that missed out on the Chiefs actually ends up being really good and being a different player to what everyone thought he was. That's why he wasn't selected, and then they end up picking him for New Zealand secondary schools. Those are kind of the other opportunities, because, as I've said over and over again, I don't feel like the scouting has been up to standard like what they should be, for obvious reasons, and I've talked about this all the time. But that's something that I would... And they haven't contacted me on anything like that. This is just what I'm saying, and I'm putting it out there to say, if you guys are keen at Moana Pacific, hit me up. I'm not that far away. They have people who work for the Players Association with New Zealand working with Moana Pacific as well, which is strange to me. I think that's kind of strange. I understand their role, but I don't know why someone from a Players Association would work with that team when it's not actually a fully New Zealand team. Say Launa Mapusua and even Totai Kefu, those guys, I feel like they should be fully a part of that team, whether it's, not even part of the coaching staff per se, but a part of the actual overseeing of the talent and the development of those players, and then they have a sort of I don't know, like a little bit of a whisper on the side of it to Aaron Major, and then they have no effect on any kind of team selections or anything like that. Just that they're there and they're close by, and that people know that those guys are an option. But things like that. So, I don't know. I don't expect anything to come of this at all, even when I put it out there, because I know the way that New Zealand Rugby looks at me, and I know that what they think about me and my involvement and what I do. Just this, they just don't like that. So I'm not expecting anything to happen from this. It's nothing like that. But the other thing that I'm going to talk about is a fixing of the national top four, right? And because people only read like bits and pieces of what I write, they don't actually like follow it all the way through. It's like the way that I do things is that I am pretty much like a season of I'm like a season program on like Netflix or HBO or something like that, where you have to like watch every episode or every write-up that I put out for you to understand what I'm talking about. Because if you just read one part, you're just watching from the middle of the season, it's not going to make sense. Then you're going to ask me questions that I've already talked about. But then that's why I have the Monday morning podcast as well, because this is for you guys that don't actually read my stuff. You just comment but don't actually read it, which is strange. It's strange. But with this side of it, right, so my plan to fix the top four was all about getting my rankings, my national rankings from 1 to 64, dividing all those teams up into four groups, which I called wuckers, but people had a problem with it, going, oh, why are you talking? And it wasn't white people, it was Māori people hitting me up, saying, why are you calling it waka for? What do you blah, blah, blah. So I just called it va. So everyone's got their own va, which is boat, and there's 4 va's, and from 1 to 64 teams in the country, you guys are divided up into each, meaning that, like, in the first VAR, there'll be like the number 1 team in the country, which was Kelston. And the second one, there's there's St. Peter's. And the third one, there's Hastings Boys. And the fourth one, there's Hamilton. Then you go back, and then the fifth one goes into the top one, the first VAR. Then the second one, there's number 6, then number 7, and it's divided like that, all the way to the end. Then the number 1 team plays number 64, or like whoever the lowest person in that VAR is, right? So, for instance, in the first one, that's why Kelston and Onehunga are matched up. Because Kelston is the number 1 team in the country, number 64 is Onehunga. That's why they get to play. That's why they play off. Now, the second best team in that VAR was Rotorua Boys, and they're ranked at number 5. And then they play Waitaki Boys, who is ranked 60th. Alright, so you get an actual, like, you get all the teams that you kind of want going through, playing the weaker teams that probably don't deserve to go through, but at the same time, the closer those numbers get to each other, the more that they're going to kind of even out. There is upsets in the first round. Like I talked about a few of them as well, because like, especially in this first one, right? And the way that it's all divided up, like the Wellington were in this first VAR, was Wellington and Whangarei Boys. Wellington was ranked 21st. Whangarei Boys was ranked 44th. But those two rankings are not that far apart in terms of like talent and stuff. They're really not that far apart. If those two teams play, that could actually be a really, really good game where Wellington will have to fight their way out of it. It's the same with Palmy Boys and John McGlashan, is that even though Palmy Boys is the better team, they're still going to have to fight their way out of playing John McGlashan. St. John's College and St. Kennigan's, I picked St. John's to win, but it's not going to be like an easy win. It's going to be something that they're hard, it's hard to fight out of. It was also the same in the second VAR as well, is that where I had Stack playing Westlake Boys. Stack is ranked 30th, Westlake Boys is 35th, but at the same time, I still think that Westlake Boys can beat Stack in that way, even though they're ranked differently. And on the day, you still have to play the game. It doesn't matter by the rankings. But it does matter about when a team takes the field, that you've given them the opportunity. That's the opportunity. See, like, people had a problem with me going, well, like, I'll take the example of the guy that was asking me about, how does Matamata, Te Awamutu, and Cambridge get an opportunity to play nationals? Now, I understand what he's saying, but my plan is actually better than the one that they have now. Because Matamata, Te Awamutu, and Cambridge don't get a shot at it. They absolutely don't get a shot at it. So, like, I don't know where the questioning comes from, where he's questioning me, like, well, how do they get a shot? Well, I was like, well, they don't actually get a shot with the current system, so why is my system worse than yours? At least my system, I've got 64 teams that actually have an honest shot of making the top 4 than the current system now. And in the current system, Matamata, and in my system actually, Matamata is part of this rankings, because Matamata did so good. They were ranked 57th, and then they would be playing King's College as a part of my rankings. My system, not the current system that's now. And the current system, like I was talking about before, is just like, who from North Harbour is gonna think about them making nationals? Like, honestly. Do they honestly think that they can beat a 1A school? They're going to lose then. That's when they're going to lose. Like, I'm not trying to be a dickhead to Westlake and, and like Taka and Rosa and them, Massey, those guys. I was like, no, I'm not. But in all honesty, how many times have you guys actually come close to beating a 1A school? There's a lot of fault in that. But in my one, just like I gave you the example before, is that Westlake boys gets to sit there and go, well, we're ranked. We're ranked pretty good, because we're like sort of midway. We get to play Stack, who's 30th, and we're 35th. We can meet halfway of wherever that is and go, at least we have a shot to play someone that we can pass this first round. Right? At least they get a shot to go, we can go to nationals, we can be a part of the national scale and games and how it looks, and we can at least get past that first round. They can't even do that with the system that they have now. They're not going to beat a 1A school. But if they look down the line and they go, I think we can take one of those Wellington schools, I think we can match up well with a CNI team, or if like they ended up getting matched up with someone like Southland, they go, well, I think we have a shot. But when they finish their season and then they finish and they go, well, let's say Westlake won, then like Westlake won boys, the North Harbour, and then it's like, oh, we got to play Kelston. You know what that scoreline was in the preseason? It was like 50-something points. So I don't understand how all you guys out there have a go at my plan when my plan is better than the current one, but you don't question the current one, which is strange to me. You don't question that, because that's really the one that stops everybody from having a shot. That's my problem with it. Because if you're living in the Chiefs region, like I wrote about, it's like your full stop's going to come with Hamilton boys. It really is. And the thing is that nobody else really knows what the landscape of the Nationals is. Everyone kind of like figures it out. They wait for me to say who it is, or say this is a Chiefs game. Or if Hastings wins this and then they beat this team, then that's the Hurricane game. But no one knows that it's a Hurricane game until this go, well, there's top four coming up. Well, who's a part of the top four? No one really knows, except for guys like myself that actually follow it. And you only know your region, but you don't know who else everybody else is playing, unless I'm the one that says it. At least as part of like my fix for the Nationals top 64 is that at least ours is a bracketed thing. You can see teams as a whole going from there to there to there to there to there to national championship. You can see it all come together. The way that they do it now, you can't. And at least it's like something that high schoolers can watch from one to the next to the next to the next. Now, I'm saying that, like, I'm not saying that once we have, like, a top 64, everybody else has to stop that doesn't make it. No, it's just like you can still have your own little tournaments and stuff. But I'm saying in terms of the nationals, sometimes Rotorua is never going to make it through because the Hamilton boys is too strong. You're never going to see St. Paul's come through because Hamilton was always too strong. You're never going to see North Harbour participate because Auckland's too strong. Now, if Hastings keeps going the way that they're going, you're not going to look at Palmy a lot anymore. You're not going to look at those Wellington teams, especially how the way the Wellington teams are going right now, is that a lot of them are not getting better than the ones from Hawke's Bay or Manawatu. Gisborne's already kind of fallen off as well, and they're trying to make their way back through the Super 8, but every season seems to be a losing season because the Super 8 is just that hard. You know, so it's hard for the boys to pick themselves up after losing seasons after one after a row, but I mean, like, you can be a dominant team within your region and have the same top 4 show up almost every single year. That's why people get so sick of Hamilton. That's why so much people are getting sick in St. Kennegan's showing up all the time. But I mean, like, it felt like you didn't have a shot. As long as, like, I mean, like, Auckland, all these Auckland schools as well. Like, Auckland have some of the best schools in the country consistently, but only one of them can make it to top 4, which is strange to me. And I know a lot of you out there, like, hate Auckland, and I'm not, like, a fan of Auckland rugby at all. But I still feel sorry for the boys. Because there's going to be years, there's been some years where there were Auckland teams ranked 1, 2, and 3. Rightfully so. But when it comes to nationals, those 3 teams can't make it there together. When they're rightfully so, the proper outlook of what the nationals should look like. What we have now is not a true national side. It's not a true national top 4, not at all. They should call it something different. And there's like a few reasons for this too, right? Like, let's say, like, people from the South are going to get pissed off, but how many times have the South gone through to the finals? The last time was Otago Boys in 2012 was when they made the finals against St. Kennegan's. And they had like the most New Zealand rep players in the New Zealand secondary schools and the New Zealand Barbarians, but they got blown out by St. Kennegan's by like 35 points or something like that. But it's a hard thing to ask for the South Island boys, the South Island teams, to keep up to date with the speed and strength and, I guess, the numbers of the northern region, of the northern teams. I'm not being a dick. That's just how it is. I mean, like, look at the differences of how, like the top 10 teams this year when St. Peter's played St. Bede's, is that there was just a different look to that. It really was. Mason Allison wasn't playing, which is a big loss, but I don't think that they would have won even if Mason played. It would have been different, but I don't think they would have won. But you could physically see the difference. You could see it from the speed of stuff as well. St. Bede's just wasn't really getting there, you know. You can have a look at like you can go have a look at Southland boys who go, well, we beat King's College. It's like, yeah, fair enough. And preseason, fair enough. In preseason, what about now? Because then the argument will be like, well, Southland, you guys beat Kings, yeah, that's cool and great, but you also lost to Charles McGlashan. You know, like, who was ranked lower. You know, that's beginning of the season stuff. And all of these kind of things are the things that come up when, like, when you talk about having a fair shot, and when you talk about having I think when you talk about having the right to get a shot and get a fair chance to prove that your team is there, like Pukekohe this year. Pukekohe can't make nationals, and they can't make, and they'll have to fight through to get through the co-ed. But I mean, like, they deserve a shot to at least go for national titles, a national title, Pukekohe. Now they'll pop up in one of the other valas that I'm bringing out. I have them matched up with, where are they? Oh, with De La Salle College, who I think that they can actually beat. I think they can actually beat De La Salle College. Pukekohe hasn't lost a game all year. Charleston, Pukekohe, and Matamata haven't lost a game all year. All of them in the nationals. They all had a shot. They all have a shot. But what we have now, they don't. I mean, they're not going to get Matamata to try and play St. Paul's Collegiate or play Hamilton Boys or St. Peter's and have like a realistic shot at trying to beat those teams. But at the same time, they're not really in contention. You're just in the Chiefs region of it. Right? Like, you're just in the Chiefs region. That, to me, is like the sad part about it, is that going back to what that guy said, it was like, how are these guys supposed to have a shot? It was just like, well, you don't have to actually... You don't even have to actually have a conversation of Matamata we're going to try and come through the Waikato region or the Chiefs region, because they don't have a shot. At least in my system, they have a shot. They may play a hard teams like King's College, but they get the experience of playing someone else that they don't know. That King's College might go, who the hell are these fellas? And then play the game and go, oh shoot, they're actually like not as bad as we thought they were. Something like that the school that I went to, Church College, something that we had against us all the time. No one knew who we were. We were just a bunch of Mormon boys that went to school and heaps of Māoris. Basically, 90% of our team were Māoris. Then you have the few Islanders and then a white fella. But no one knew who we really were most of the time unless you had traditions against us. And our big traditions were always Te Aute, Wesley, Tipene, and Western Heights. Hamilton Boys and St. Paul's only knew us because we're here. But if we went elsewhere, a lot of them didn't know us unless they played basketball. Then they knew who Church College was. But that was the same thing, is that once we would go and play like other schools from other regions, and they're like, oh shoot, who are these fellas? And we'll flip and blow out some schools. We used to go to a tournament up in Auckland called the Papakura tournament, and like we used to go up against like the big schools like Otahu and Mags and like, you know, those guys. They're like, holy crap, and we would win our games there against 1A schools. Things like that, you know. So for me, having these teams traveling around the country, going to experience different players, experience different teams, experience different places to play in, and all to be part of this big top 60 is a different thing from playing within your region. It's a different thing. Because, like, think about, like, some of the matchups that I had, right? And I talked about them before. Charleston and Ongehanga is not like a different one. Like, they used to play each other all the time. That's fine. But Rotorua playing Waitaki Boys, I don't even know if they've ever played each other before. I wouldn't even know if Rotorua, if I could ask a boy from Rotorua, like if I went up to Jericho, I said, Jericho, York, oh, to Jericho, I said, Jerry, what's their colours? Probably wouldn't know. He probably wouldn't know. You know, and they probably wouldn't be able to even like pick out, even if we put 5 teams in front of them, go, oh, I don't know, like which one is their crest? If it doesn't have the name on it, they probably wouldn't know. But at least in this, they would used to go, man, we played Waitaki Boys before. It's like, they're not as bad as we thought they were going to be. And like a newfound respect for different teams. And then Waitaki going, shoot, those fellas are better than Rotorua. Those fellas are better than Otago. That's a different kind of boys' school. Like, we've played Otago before. We're familiar with that kind of, boys' school, and Southland boys is like, but that one's different. Because it honestly is different. Otago boys is not worse in terms of like the style and the way that they play. It's just different. Same thing as Southland boys. And Otago will tell you that too when they go up to nationals and under 15s. They go, oh shoot, that's a different side to what we are. And we're both boys' schools. Top boys' schools as well. Talking about Otago boys in the same VAR, you had Otago boys playing Rosmini College. Apart from basketball, actually the basketball one-on-one would be better than the rugby one-on-one. Like, the basketball one Otago would actually have a shot and play some good basketball against Rosmini. I think Rosmini will win, but when it comes to rugby on the other side of it, it's not basketball, but on the rugby side of it, Otago is taking that game. But at the same time, those rugby boys never play Otago in rugby. Rosa never plays Otago. Obies never go up to Rosa and then play them. That's not a connection that you would ever see. But at least they get to see that kind of stuff. At least it becomes a story. It'd be like, yeah, we met up halfway. We played in, like, I don't know, pick a place like Paraparaumu. We met up there and we played in Paraparaumu, and, it was cool. It was like we were having a travelling game. Travelling games are always the best. If you're going part of rugby school, travelling games are always cool. Get to hang out with your mates, have bus trips, sing songs, whatever. Have stories, be idiots, stuff like that. Like I said before, the Wellington Whangarei one will be a good one. The Palmy John McGlashan will be a good one to watch. The St. John's and St. Kennigan's would actually be a great game next year. Both coaches, if you guys are listening, try and set that game up with each other, because both of you guys have each almost 16 each coming back next year. I think St. Kennigan's have 18. Just off the top of my head. But it will be a great game. If that's a good preseason game to go, you two should set that one up. St. Kennigan's and St. John's should actually be a game next year. But in terms of this year, St. John's to me would win that. They've had a better season, more consistent, more veteran players, even though they're both quite young. The better veteran players in terms of like Tian and like those kind of guys. And then also St. Kennigan's just having a very young side that started off real good and then just flipping depleted on their way through the season. But from what I saw of some of the games that were sent, they got better. And the worst thing about St. Kennigan's was that the worst thing about their season is that they had a big, massive high, and then they flipping got a shotgun when flipping Kelston came on, and then Kelston destroyed them on TV, which is the other thing, some of you boys, it's cool to be on TV, but you got to be able to handle that mentally and be secure about yourself, whether you win or lose, that you're going to be all right and be like, it's one game, wash it away, and we'll just start again. I feel personally, and I'm not talking about anybody, like any inside story or anything like that, personally, they did not go through that situation where they were able to just get rid of those kind of feelings of having a loss on TV by that bad. That was just me. I felt like they were too young to go, it just bothers me that we were just embarrassed. And it was just embarrassed. The best thing is that those St. Kennigan's boys, a lot of them were just year 11s. A lot of year 11s, a lot of year 12s. And it's going to be a different team next year, 100% a different team. And just this different kind of attitude is going to come next year when those guys are just confident as the MFs and then just come out and just blow everybody away kind of thing. And St. Kennigan's is going to be one of the scariest teams next year in terms of turnaround teams and what they look like one year to the next. That team is the one that you're going to have to watch out for. Now, if we go into the second one, right? Now we're going to the second VAR, where St. Peter's College in Auckland is the top team in that VAR. So, St. Peter's and St. Bernard's is one of those teams, those two teams, and Catholic teams that are both going to meet up and have that sort of connection of being both Catholic schools and go, man, we should do this again. But at least they get to meet. There should actually be a Catholic tournament at the beginning of the year. And so it should be like a Catholic school camp where all the Catholic schools come together, because there's enough of them and they're all really, really good. And just bring them together as a camp. Have all the Catholic boys in one camp. They should do it over here at St. John's and Hamilton. They got a new gym. They got new good grounds next to the university, and they got Marist that's close by that will help out. Definitely, we've got a bunch of coaches, and they're all together with sort of like the school. But that'll be a great place. But like having those two teams meet up, and they've just they'll never actually think about doing that, because like St. Bernard's and St. Paul's College, the league school, those guys have a traditional matchup this year, and St. Bernard's won that one this year too, down there in Lower Hutt. But I mean, that would be like a good matchup. That'll be a matchup. Would be like, well, maybe this could be a long-term thing, because that St. Peter's and St. Bede's matchup is a cool matchup. I really like that game. If everything works out for me, I'm going to go down to next year's one down in Christchurch, because I like that game so much. St. Paul's Collegiate and Otahuhu College will be a great one. Really would be. I feel sorry for Otahuhu College, because they're in the area where it's Otahuhu, Kings, De La Salle. Aorere's not that far away. Southern Cross is not that far away. And it really is just kind of like a who gets who kind of thing. Obviously, King's College is the only private school out of all of them, but at the same time, King's College can, hook that up and get the boys that they want there, But that St. Paul's Collegiate and Otahuhu would be a really good game. The Timaru one I spoke about too. Timaru and Howard College would be very, very interesting. It'll be a really cool connection of those two teams. Just those two different styles. And remember, Howard College was so good this year that they should have been in that 1A. They really should have. And I'm not trying to be a dick to Liston College or anything like that. Howard should have been that team that should have went through. It should have been Howard or Botany Downs. McLean's was also really good, like those kind of teams. But Howard to me would have been the best team to go into their into that 1A. And I feel like this Howard team, if they got to travel, if they got to play other teams around the country, sort of feel out how good they actually are as a team and as a growing program, because it's a growing program. I think most of the time that we think of Howard, we always think of the girls' sevens because they're so good. But the boys program has actually really, really lifted a lot within the last just 3 years. Maybe the boys are staying there within their region, and maybe they're just, deciding to stay. But I mean, that's a side that you would really want to look out for. Napier Boys Takapuna Grammar School would be a good one too. It won't be close. I'm telling you now, it won't be a close game. But it would be a good fight for 50 minutes. It really would be. I think Takapuna will be able to hold for about 50 minutes, 40 minutes, 50 minutes. And then Napier Boys should just be Napier Boys and just be too strong. That's kind of how it'd be. They'll just be too strong. But another one is just one of those ones where guys get to travel, right? Tangaroa College, Whanganui Collegiate will be the other one where Whanganui Collegiate will struggle. And they'll only just win it in the end. And I've said this before, and I've said this every time I talk about Tangaroa College. One of the most talented teams in the country, but at the same time, very unfit. That's just how it is. And I know how they feel too, because I was always unfit. I was just naturally big, naturally stronger than everybody. I could scrum against most guys because I was just on my size and strength based on no real technique at all. I was really lazy when it came to learning about rugby as a whole, being in high school. But I relate myself to those boys from Tangaroa College because that's just how they are. A lot of those guys are just naturally gifted players. But that forward pack is too unfit. Strong, physical, powerful, all that kind of stuff, but too unfit. If they just got fitness right, they would be They'll be hitting that top 4 in Auckland. They'll be challenging that. If you look at all their scores from this year, they never really got blown out by a big, massive margin where they weren't in the game. I don't think that there was any where they got wasted. But they finished within 10 points of St. Peter's. They finished within 12 of Mags. Auckland Grammar was the same. I think it was 10. I think the only one that they really got blown out against was Rotorua Boys. And that was like pre-season. And I think St. Peter's School was the other one that they got blown out in as well. But that only happened towards the end, really, I think. If I'm remembering this right. Because they showed up in the orange, too. Which is the uniform. I like that uniform. I like that orange uniform. But anyway, that's a matchup that would be pretty cool. Because, like, I think most people would think Whanganui would be the automatic team. But once you win the teams run out, it's not going to be that as automatic as you think. It really is going to be a nail biter. And that Whanganui Collegiate and Tangaroa College, if they actually played for real, there would actually be a moment of like 10 minutes of nail biting because that scoreline will be so close. Christchurch Boys and Manurewa, Christchurch Boys will have problems with those guys in Rewa. They'll have problems trying to tackle those boys. They just don't have that physicality, size and physicality and mobility and agility like those boys at Rewa have. But at the same time, that team structure play is not the same at Rewa that it is at Christchurch Boys. That's why I pick Christchurch. Because as a team, Christchurch is better. As individuals, Rewa's better. In terms of just players alone. You know, so that's where like the difference is with me that comes into it. And then the Stack and Westlake Boys, the Stack I think would lose that game. Not by a lot, but I think that they would lose. I think it'll be a close game, and that would be like one of the first upsets on round 1 would be that Stack and Westlake, and Westlake will come out of that winning. But then like Stack being ranked 30 and then Westlake being ranked 35, that is not a lot of points at all. As there's not even a lot of points between 35 and 25. Like we're only speaking about like 1 to 10 points between all of them. And then like the best cases. That's why when it comes to like the rankings and stuff and like changes, because some of them change and don't change depending on wins and losses and how much is because like those margins of gaps between all those schools are not that much at all. If they both came with their best games at both, you know, you're only talking about 7 points between, you know, 25 and 35. And even like 30 and 50. Those rankings between 30 and 50 are also the same as that like if they all came with their best game, it's just like it's not that far apart in terms of scores, and upsets can happen easily. It really is kind of like that. But even in this third one that I'm doing, and I'm writing it up now, you know, there's a lot of these games that are lopsided, and that's obvious that they're going to be lopsided. Like Hastings, ranked 3rd, they're the top team within their VAR. Them and Rangiora High School from Rangiora, but like from the Miles Toyota championship, is that those teams will probably never ever get together. I don't even know if they've even had a game ever before in their, you know, in their history. But that would be a cool one to, you know, to play. You know, like I think that would be a cool one to go against. King's College is the second team in that VAR, and them ranked 7th. Matamata's 58th in the rankings, and like I said, that may be a blowout, but you can still get respect even though your school gets blown out. Because there's going to be some of those boys on that Matamata side that King's College are going to go, oh shoot, that dude is, bro, he's different. That kid's on another level. And that's kind of like what you expect and what you want when you're a smaller school and you get the respect from the other team, regardless of the scoreline. You still get the respect from the other team, and that's kind of like the mentality that we had at Church College, was that we went to we knew that basketball respect was there, but when we came as a rugby team, like, we weren't backing down to you guys for anything. And we played Mags, we played Calcium, we played Wesley when Wesley was Wesley, like that kind of thing. Like, there was a side 2001 where Wesley wasn't even playing high schools because no one wanted to play them as a high school. So they were playing under 21s. Under 19s or under 21s. I think it was under 21s then. They were playing under 21s. The first high school that they played that year was us, and then we almost beat them. We lost by 7, I think it was. And then they also had a go at St. Paul's Collegiate, I think, and they almost lost against St. Paul's Collegiate. But then when they got to the national finals, they played Rotorua Boys. I think they blew them out by 30, something like that. Lim Messon was in that team, like, and that's when Rotorua Boys had a flipping mean team as well. They had such a good side on that 2001 Rotorua Boys School team as well. But Wesley was, and that's when Wesley had I think Stephen Donald was in that team, Sivivatu was in that team. Who are the other guys? Not Casey Lolala. That was a year after. But yeah, I think they had like 3 guys that were just exceptional players, and they were such a hard side. But we gained their respect too when we played against them, because they just weren't used to high school kids. They were always playing under 21s. And then when they came to our ground, and they beat us at home too, and we just threw everything at them. We were just like, it's whatever. It's just one of those kind of things, just like whatever. You know, and it was such a good game. I think it's on YouTube too. I'm not too sure. A guy from our community, one of the loved guys from our community who's passed on now, Brother Cassidy, who's such a great guy. He used to record those games, and I actually think he recorded that game too. So cool. But yeah, it's just one of those things where you can still gain a lot of respect. I think this VAR 3, this third one, is going to be another one to me. Even as I'm writing it up, I'm still thinking about it. Like, even the Mags and Ottawa schools, like, even though Mags I think will win, Ottawa's still got some of those players that can that should really surprise you, and that should really get a lot more credit than I guess, you know, they're given most of the time. Because Ottawa wasn't a bad school at all this year. The Christ College versus Wesley would be a good one. You know, just one of those schools that don't really come and match up anymore, you know. Tauranga Boys Massey would be interesting, only because Tauranga Boys and Massey used to play under 15s nationals, and, you know, I guess somewhat familiar, but not these boys, because obviously boys change all the time, so they won't have that familiarity or anything like that. Southland Boys, Gisborne Boys will be a good one. I think Southland Boys will win that one, but I don't think it will be as easy as like, you know, most of these games that happen in the Super 8. I really think Gisborne Boys will give them a hard go, and especially like ranked 23rd, like Southland Boys ranked 23rd and Gisborne 42. As far apart as you think that those rankings are, come game time, I think it would be different too, which is like the best thing about it. Even this New Plymouth versus Old Eder College, New Plymouth ranked 26 and Old Eder College ranked 39th. That is not that far at all. And seeing both teams, you know, that would be a huge matchup to watch. It would be a great game to watch just now. I wish after all of this they just had like a one-off game. That would be cool. That would be cool to watch. Just a good thing to watch. St. Pat's Town and Lindisfarne. I don't know if they played at the beginning of this year, but that would also be another one that will be pretty interesting, and like how it actually finishes. You know, because I think that a lot of people see the big name of who St. Pat's Town is, but it's not actually like that right now in terms of how the teams are playing, because Lindisfarne's got some talent, and they've got some good young talent as well that are going to be back next year, who are going to be really cool to watch and to experience and to see how much that they've grown. But I mean, like, you know, all these va'as that they're in, the va'as that they're in, and the teams that they get to play up and play against is also going to be an interesting one too, because like, I mean, like, I've already done round 2, and I've already posted it up on Facebook. Is that, you know, round 2 of even the first va'as that like Kelston Boys and St. John's College get to play in the second round. Rotorua Boys and Palmy is obviously a familiar one all the time, but they also play in the second round. St. Peter's School Cambridge and Wellington College will be an interesting one if they actually got to play each other in the second round. And then Otago Boys and Silverstream will be one of the best matchups that you'll probably ever get to see this year if this was my top 64 nationals. Like, I'd love to see those 4 teams go out against each other. St. Peter's School in Wellington would be such a mean game to watch. Really, really even too. Really, really even. And this is kind of where the rankings even out to where those that should be part of the nationals are in the nationals, but it still gave the smaller teams a shot. Is that Kelston Boys, who's number 1, they get played 29, number 29 ranked St. John's. Rotorua Boys are ranked 5th. Play against Palmy Boys, who are ranked 28th. St. Peter's are ranked 12th. They get to play Wellington College, who's ranked 21st. And then Otago Boys, who's ranked 13th, get to play Silverstream, who's ranked 20th. Now, again, with those rankings, is that they're not that far apart. Those are easy upsets to happen every single game. Those are easily the only one that would not be an upset. The only one that to me is not going to be a close upset would be the first one. It was Kelston Boys and St. John's, because I think that distance is a bit too much from 1 to 29. That is a big gap, and that is a big gap in sort of school as well, in terms of who Kelston has to who St. John's have. Even the talent player for player is going to be different too. They can match up in some areas, but not the whole team together. And so that will be one of those ones that you sort of want to watch out for. But, you know, anyone else within that first va'a in the second round would be such a cool matchup to watch. And like I was thinking about this before, right? It's just like, I actually think this would be a pretty easy and simple way to fund it as well. I feel like if New Zealand Barbarians put in money like they usually do to help sponsor the thing, and then give it to like this is the way that I would do it. I would tell schools that you are on the verge to making the national top 64. You're in the right ranking system. You're going to be in there somewhere. Every team should go out and look for 2 sponsors, and then those 2 sponsors that they have, those will be the 2 advertising sponsors on their game that is viewed, and the other team will get their 2. So there'll be 4 sponsors bought by 2 different schools. They'll be advertised on the games when they are screened live. So the game will be live. They will get all their views that they need to get free, but then the sponsors will be the ones that are paying up the money that you'll be able to split to pay the people who record the games, and that will stream it, and then the rest of that money goes into travel for both of the teams to travel. Because I'm meeting both at halfway points, I was like, yeah, of course. Put it all in and say, that's how much it is, and then anything else, just split it back up and give it to the teams for the next rounds. And if it doesn't go in the next rounds, then it just goes into that team's, travel for next year. Something like that, I don't know. Buy them new boots. Buy them a new uniform. But I would do it that way. I'd make sure that, and then do that for every single game that you play. It's just like, do it that way, and especially do it for every single game that you play. and just hold on to that funding for either your next game or for the game after. Because I mean, like, there were games that weren't going to be that far away from each other. What was the one that I had? Oh, Scots College and Rathkill. Like, it was like they weren't spending much money at all just to travel. Like, those two are not that far away, Masterton and Upper Hutt. And then, like, I was thinking, well, why not? You know, I'd think, why not? Just hold that money and then, you know, wait for the next trip, and then, you know, all that money goes into sponsorship, into advertising, and just have those advertisings run throughout the whole game for all four of them, so that they can get the advertising money out of it. Especially because the game's going to be free to air. It's not going to be free, you know, like to for people to pay for it. It's just like you'll get the views up a lot more if people can just watch it for free, where the advertising comes into it, you know, so that the advertisers can get the viewership that they want, or the eyeballs that they want. We still get the game, and then they still get money to pay for the travel. Obviously, the more that you make it up the rankings, the more that you keep winning games, the more you have to go out and look for advertising. But who knows if, like, one advertiser's like, yeah, we did the last game, we'll do it again. And, like, it paid off for us there. It's like, yeah, cool. You know, like, why not? They think about stuff like that. Everyone likes to put down ideas before they, you know, just because they, oh, no, we can't get the money, so everyone just wants to stop and go, okay, yeah, we won't be able to get the money. So, yeah, we didn't bloody try. You know, it's like, they didn't try. How about, like, New Zealand, the New Zealand Barbarians and that help out and go, well, we'll pay for some of you guys' stuff. We'll put this much money towards that, and then you guys make up the rest. I have New Zealand Barbarians sponsor the whole thing. The whole top 64. You know, it's like, get a sticker of, like, the things on their uniform or something. I don't know. But figure something else out. Don't just cut ideas off just because you think, oh, it's going to be too hard. People are going to say no. It's just like, yeah, you don't know yet. You know? You don't know yet. All I know is that I would love to see Otago Boys and Silverstream play in, like, Wellington and St. Peter's. I would like to see Southland and Gisborne Boys play. 100%. That's one of those games that, like, you just never know if they're ever going to play. You know, and there's some cool ones. Like, I like, even, like, in the fourth VAR. So, like, in the fourth VAR, right? Hamilton Boys is the main team in there because they're ranked number 4 in the country. They get to play Botany Downs. The worst thing about this is that Botany Downs lost to Hamilton Boys 2nd 15 at the beginning of the year. So, chances that they're going to beat them? Not really. But also the other thing is that they can still gain respect out of the fact that they show up to this game and play Hamilton Boys and give it to them as, you know, make it as hard as possible. That's all you can do, is make it as hard as possible and be happy about your performance when you leave the field. That's kind of like the other thing. You know, it's just like, just be happy about your performance. You may have lost, but it's like, be happy about your performance. Rosehill College. Now, again, back to my point of everyone getting a shot. Who's banking on Rosehill College getting a shot? If you're going to argue about what about Te Awamutu, Cambridge, and Matamata, I'm also putting in Rosehill College as having a shot as nationals. Playing Nelson College. That's not going to be good for Rosehill College. Not at all. But they still get to have their shot. And sometimes, not all schools deserve a spot. Not all schools deserve a shot to make it to the next round. Only so few. I got 64 spots in my fix-up of the national ranking. 64 teams. But not everyone deserves a shot. Come on. Melville High School does not deserve a shot. Ngātai Aotea does not deserve a shot. Whitehall College does not deserve a shot. They just don't. Do you know what I mean? It sounds mean. Like St. Peter's Gore or Gore High School, they do not deserve a shot at National Top 64. That's not mean. It's reality. It's weighing it up. Now, if someone was to say to me, what about Lindisfarne College? I'd be like, yeah, they do, of course. So what about Rose Hills? I was like, well, they have a pretty good record. They lost twice to Pukekohe. They beat everybody else by pretty big margins. They have a really good squad led by their centre, who's like one of those guys that you kind of like, you're not really too sure how good he actually is, but he seems to have proven himself throughout the whole time. And, it's just like one of those kind of things where you can actually, in your mind, sort of have that argument with yourself. That's like, well, what about St. John's College? St. John's College, like, yeah, actually, I would give them a shot. They have Bradley Campbell, they have, Kiddes there as well. They have some other good younger fellas that are in that team. Like Xavier's really good, the sharp guys. I was thinking, well, yeah, they do. But they still get that thought. It's still kind of an argument for them to be there or not. And he's like, well, what do you think about Dilworth? And I was like, yeah, Dilworth is like, they had some good wins. They may not be too high in the 1A, but I think that they deserve that shot within that 50 to 64 region. I think they deserve to be kind of around there. They deserve to be around the 40 kind of marks, I guess. They did have some good wins. St. Kennigan's was a good win. First time they've ever done it, I think. First time in a long time. But it's those kind of situations. St. Thomas and Rongotai would be a good game to watch. St. Thomas and Rongotai. St. Thomas was like one of the best in their... One of the best in their comp. And they missed out on top 4 based on points. It was just one of those hard ones. And in all honesty, and I haven't seen the full game, I've seen highlights, but it seemed to me they were deflated in that last game against Marlborough Boys. I think in all honesty, they should have put a number on them, but I think they were deflated. I think that they just knew that they should have done better in the game before, it was just so gutting missing out on that top 4. But, to me, those would be those situations to me. That's, to me, is just like, I would watch these games for those kind of things, to keep that stuff alive. Especially someone like St. Thomas who go, well, we effed it up in the points and it just didn't roll our way, but we still got a shot at Nationals. Because in Nationals, at least it doesn't go off points. It goes off who you play on the day. You win, you carry on, you lose, you go home kind of situation. And that's kind of what I like about this in terms of who you can be able to play, and the matchups that you could get are probably way out of your mind. Way out of it. You'll have to be following the top 200 rankings for first 15s to go, okay, we're falling around this area. We're kind of matched up with those guys up there, or we're kind of matched up with these lower ones here. And even the guys that are looking at the lower ones are going, oh, shoot, we kind of don't want to play those fellas. By the way, Herschel talks about, we kind of don't want to play those guys there. We don't mind this section of guys, but these 3 teams, I hope our team doesn't land in there. That's how you're going to be looking at the Nationals. And everyone's going to be able to do that. That's the kind of like the fun thing about this, is that everybody will be able to look at it. Everybody will be going, okay, so if we're ranked 19, and it kind of falls out this way, then we'll kind of be playing these guys here. Because pretty much you pay for the top and the bottom, you go, those guys play, and they go all the way to the middle. So the guys that you don't want to be are the guys that are in the middle. You don't want to end your season there, because it means once you have every single game right there, it's going to be hard. If you finish in the middle, your games are going to be hard all the time, every single game. That's where you don't want to fall. That's why it's hard that you're Stack and Westlake Boys. That's why it's hard that you're De La Salle and Pukekohe. It's hard that you're St. Pat's Town and Lindisfarne. You don't want to be those teams. You don't want to be those guys that be just like, shoot, St. John's and St. Kennigan's, you're like, holy crap, you have to play these guys? That's our first game? It's like, yeah. And if you win, your second game is going to be Kelston Boys, the number 1 team in the country. And I'm not saying they can't upset them. I'm not saying that at all. All I'm saying is that, like, you get to know who your guys are probably pretty much going to be if you follow the rankings. You know, it's that kind of thing. Everyone can do it. And it means you play the unknown. You know, here in Hamilton, Hamilton is that, we play St. Paul's, we already know what they're like. And then after that, we'll play either Tauranga boys or Rotorua boys. We kind of know what that's like as well. And you kind of already predict who's going to get through. And this, you don't know. Wellington College is going to be like, we know who Whangarei boys is. It's like, we haven't really seen what they're like. That's like the interesting thing about it. But will New Zealand Rugby want to take this on board? No. But at least I can do this. At least I can dream about it a little bit and go, I think that would be mean. At least I can talk to you guys and get it out and be like, what do you think? How does that, pique your mind, pique your imagination, just the fantasy of watching that, and your son's like, let's go up to Whangarei and let's see what we can do against those fellas. Because that would be cool. Because then even after that, you'd be like, man, if we can get through Whangarei, who knows? Whangarei, and then you move on to St. Peter's. Another school you don't really know about, but it's like, let's have a go with that guy. Let's have a go with those fellas. Hear about them all year. Herschel's wrong. We could beat those fellas. We're ranked higher than them. But that's my Monday morning meeting. I'm sorry it's so late. I'll try and get my stuff fixed. Jeepers. Hopefully we all open up. I'll probably try and get it done then. Got a broken phone too. My daughter's watching your stupid reaction videos. But everybody keep safe. I already got my double vaxxed. Keep safe. Keep your family safe. Peace out.